Do you remember when we talked about why only some animals survived the Great Extinction, when the dinosaurs went extinct 66 million years ago? Some animals just kept going. Did you know that some animals that were alive at the same time as dinosaurs are still with us today? Like crocodiles, turtles, and sharks. How did they manage to be the only survivors of such a catastrophe? What did they do right while others perished? And how does it relate to our survival in the future? Well, after analyzing many studies, experts have considered that three major factors helped these animals to survive the mass extinction. The first factor was their size. Most dinosaurs were large animals. Iconic dinosaurs like the Tyrannosaurus rex or the Brachiosaurus. These guys needed loads of food to stay alive. And then suddenly there was no food because most plants died. So big animals that couldn't find enough food quickly died out, including most dinosaurs. However, some smaller reptiles were around, like crocodiles and lizards, which were perfect survivors. They didn't need much food to stay alive, so they managed to endure the difficult times. But size isn't the only thing. The second factor is where they lived. Some animals were lucky because they lived in places that weren't directly affected by the asteroid impact, and this gave them a better chance of surviving. For example, some mammals and reptiles found shelter underground and were safe from the fires and dust, so they survived. Also, some animals that lived far away from the impact area didn't get affected as much. For example, some sea creatures that lived in the deep ocean weren't hit as hard as others because they didn't depend on sunlight as much. This helped them survive. Another example is that some animals could hide in swamps, lakes, or marshes. Here, despite the chaos, they could find some food and clean water, and they were protected from the sun and the wind. And yes, you guessed it right, alligators were among those survivors. They found a nice home in the swamps. But not only animals that lived in certain places survived. There were also animals that had developed abilities to survive in very harsh conditions. For example, some species were used to living in places with salty water, hot temperatures, and little oxygen. So when the asteroid hit and everything got messed up, they were ready for it. They were like, oh, another crazy change, no biggie. And they just kept on going. But wait, there's more. Not all animals that seemed tough managed to survive. You see, it wasn't just about being physically strong. It was also about being smart and adaptable. It was the animals that could learn new behaviors and apply them quickly that managed to survive. Take the gar, for instance. They're a type of fish that was around during the time of the dinosaurs. These fish were really resilient and could survive in various habitats like swamps or lakes with little oxygen. But the thing is, they almost became extinct because they couldn't adapt to changes in their environment. But some of them evolved quickly, becoming bigger and stronger, and that helped them survive. In the end, it wasn't just one factor that helped these animals survive. It was a mix of where they lived, their size, how they lived, and whether they were able to adapt to new situations. But there's one more thing that makes them special. They didn't disappear completely after the asteroid hit. They kept going, evolving and adapting to new environments. Look at the crocodiles. They were already around before the dinosaurs showed up, and they're still here, hanging out in rivers and lakes worldwide. As for sharks, they're still swimming in the oceans, and the starfishes and crabs, they're still chilling in the sea. It's pretty cool to think that these creatures have been around since before the days of the dinosaurs. While we don't know exactly how everything unfolded back then, scientists have pieced together a pretty good idea based on the evidence they have. It's amazing to see how nature works. Even in the face of an asteroid hitting the Earth, some creatures managed to survive, and some of them are still around today. It's important to understand that it wasn't just luck that saved them. They were able to adapt to new conditions, and that helped them endure. It reminds us that we need to be flexible and ready to adapt to changes in order to survive. Sometimes what seems impossible turns out to be possible, and it's the flexibility and adaptability of creatures that helps them survive and thrive.